So let's go to the main clients tab. This is where we can see the list of the clients that have been entered. This is where we can also sort it by advisor. So if I wanted to see just clients assigned to me, I can click on search and see that there's only 2. But in this case, my permissions allow me to see everybody since I'm an administrator. So I see my full list of clients. If I want to add a new client, I just click on add client, enter in their personal information. All that's going to be required here is first name, last name, birth date, married couple. If that is checked, you'll get some benefits from that, like Social Security, spousal benefits, so you don't want to overlook that box. But gender and Social Security address information is optional, doesn't have to be entered. Same with employment. So once you have that information entered, you can create a new plan. Oops, if my fingers could type on the right keys here. Okay, so here I am as a sample client. I can click on update, and now this new client has been created. And if I want to create a plan for this client, all I need to do is click on the plus sign to create a new plan. Enter in a title and optionally a description. Once I have this plan created, I can get into the main data input by doing Open Edit Plan. This also gives you some additional functions. So if you had a full plan created, let's say you did a plan last year and you want to update it, you can copy their existing plan and make changes to the new plan, leaving that old plan intact. You can also choose to export plans or import plans from here. So rather than this starting a new client from scratch, I'm going to open up one of our existing clients to go through the data input. And I think we've got John's sample here somewhere. There he is. And I could also have searched for John's sample to find him that way. But here's my client information. This is where I can assign the client to a different advisor. If I need to edit any of the client information, I can. We can see the existing plan, and what I want to do is Open Edit Plan. This is going to take me to the heart of the program. This is going to be the data input for this plan, the reports that can be generated for this plan, and the what if for this plan. So to go through this different data input sections, first we have names and ages, where you need to set planned retirement age, life expectancy. The life expectancy is calculated and grayed out. The program calculates individual one's life expectancy based on a single lifetime table, and for individual 2 it just tags on 5 more years. If we want to use anything other than that calculated value, just drop down to this alternate life expectancy field, enter in a value there, and the program will use that instead. If any of this other information doesn't apply, like married couple, oops, that wasn't supposed to be yes, you just need to click on contact information to make the changes there on that contact level. One thing that you have to keep in mind when you're using this online application is you have to click on save to save your changes. So if you've entered information like an alternate life expectancy and you move away and come back, Silver Online is not going to save that change. So just make sure that you enter in the value, click on save or save and continue, which just saves and then advances you to the next data input. So the next data input item is risk, and this is just going to be where you're setting a risk tolerance level for the client. There's a risk tolerance test that you can check the check boxes and have the program set a risk tolerance level based on the answers. That risk tolerance test is included in the questionnaire. There is, at the top right hand side, Open Silver Questionnaire. If you click on that, it will open up a Word document, and that is going to collect all the information from your client that is required for the plan. That will make life super easy because it actually collects not only all the information, but it collects it in the same order as the program asks for it. So if you have your client fill out that questionnaire, it'll make data entry a breeze into the system here. So once we have the risk tolerance set, we can move on to estate. The estate section is something you can skip if you're not trying to use the estate planning reports. If you are, you want to fill out the information here, including what kind of estate strategies they already have in place, if they're going to be gifting any amount to charity, probate and administration type expense percentage. So you'll want to fill out the pertinent information. Once you're through with that, you can move on to insurance. And insurance is going to collect their life insurance. So life insurance policies will go here. We can see what's already been entered. If I need to add new policies or modify the existing policies that have already been entered, just click on this Add/Modify Policies button. So I can move through the different policies that have already been entered on the left-hand side. But when I do add a policy, I just need to fill out the name, who's the insured, owner, beneficiary, what type of policy it is, death benefit. Premiums are optional, so you don't have to fill out that information, but if you do have it, you can enter it in. The program's mainly concerned with this death benefit. For term policies, the program essentially assumes that it ends at retirement age. What really drives that is these two checkboxes at the bottom. So the first checkbox is include policy death benefit and retirement projection. If you check this box, we're going to say, okay, this $100,000 death benefit would be available when this person dies. In this case, it's individual 2 at individual 2's life expectancy. Since this is a term policy, that's actually not going to be true, so we want to just make sure we uncheck that first box. The second box is the same question, other than it's looking at, instead of retirement projection, the survivor needs analysis. And the survivor needs analysis look at if death were to occur today. So in this case, yes, individual 2, if she were to die today, this $100,000 death benefit would be available for individual 1 to live off of, so we would want to check that box. For a whole life policy, typically both those boxes would be checked rather than term, just the second box checked. So you can add new items or delete items. To save your changes, make sure you hit OK. In this case, I'm going to hit cancel since I haven't changed anything. So once you have all the life insurance policies entered, you have the ability to enter in long-term care coverage if they do have a long-term care plan. Long-term care cost override amount, if you leave this 0, that's when the program's going to pick from the information that you have either in your settings or your defaults under administration. Once you're through with that section, you can click on Save and Continue to advance to Income, Pension, Social Security. So this is going to be collecting these income streams of pensions, earned income, and Social Security. You'll notice we have a spot for 2 pensions per person. What we're asking for individual 1 and 2, so first pension for individual 1. In this case, individual 1 has a defined pension benefit of $7,200 a year. It's starting at age 62. It does not increase before starting age, but it will increase at 3% a year after it starts at age 62. And you have the ability to enter if any of this benefit is available to a surviving spouse. So in this case, there is no survivor benefit on this pension. You'll notice we have a lump sum checkbox too, and this is for lump sum pension payouts. If we check the box, you'll notice those last 2 boxes get disabled. But what we can do is enter in a lump sum pension. So if he were to get a $100,000 lump sum at age 65, and it increased at 2% between now and his age 65, with this box checked, we would see a one-time lump sum income that would automatically get rolled over into his retirement plan money. So it would automatically get rolled over into a tax-deferred type retirement plan. Going to zero that stuff out. I could also just make sure not to hit save if I didn't want to save my changes. Current earned income, enter that information here. That'll be used for the cash flow report, the insurance reports. It will also be used to estimate Social Security benefits. So if you have the Social Security statement for the client and you know an expected benefit amount, go ahead and plug that amount here in this last box. If you don't, the program will be able to estimate it based on that earned income. Social Security start age, any increase you want to assume on those Social Security benefits, and again, if you have the statement, you know the actual estimated benefit amount, type that in rather than the program calculating it. If you want to keep Social Security out of the projection, you'll notice this note in blue, set start age to 0. So if we do that, this would ensure that individual 1 would not get Social Security benefits. Also, if we wanted to make sure this individual did not receive any survivor Social Security benefits, we could also check this box. So with this combination, individual 2 would not get Social Security in any of the reports in any of the situations. As long as we have a start age in there and an earned income, the program will be able to estimate a benefit for us. The next input item is expenses. So we've collected their income, now let's collect their expenses. We can keep things real simple and just enter in a total expense amount, or you can use this budget calculation worksheet. This budget worksheet is also available in the questionnaire, so if the client provides that information for you, you can plug in the values here. If you do that and hit OK, the program will populate these totals for you. If not, you can also just keep it general and say, okay, this client is spending about $70,000 a year right now. In retirement, we expect their expenses to go down a little bit, down to $57,500. So we have 2 periods, current and retirement, as well as different amounts for surviving households. So for a survivor situation, if you expect the expenses to be different, in this case we're expecting them to be a little bit lower, we can reflect that here. And of course your assumed inflation rate to apply to those expenses to the right. So the next data input item, we could click on Save and Continue, or just click on the input item on this left-hand side, is the Special Income Planner. So we can add future special income type items here. Here's an example, a gift from parents, $5,000, increasing 2%, starting in 2009. So that's a little bit of an older example. Number of years, this could be 1, it could be 10, it could be 1 if it's just a single year item, 10 if it's an income stream coming in for 10 years. Once you do have a special income item, you'll just want to click on Insert for it to save before clicking on Continue. So we have special income items to capture kind of income items that don't necessarily fit other places. So things like a lump sum income that they're receiving, if they're going to be selling like a piece of land that they have in the future, that would be a great item to enter in the special income planner. The next item is special expenses / goals, and these are for special goals, future large purchases, expenses. These are items that the client, is not going to be able to cover out of their regular cash flow. This is something that they would actually need to pull from their assets to cover. So items like a European vacation, replacing a roof, or redoing a kitchen, this $12,000 would actually come from the client's assets if it's occurring prior to retirement, rather than just assumed to be covered with their regular income. So when we add purchases, just like the special expense planner, we can see the description, after-tax amount, increase rate, first year, number of years, and then for expenses, an item that we don't have an income is a priority, and this will be used for a special goal funding report, which evaluates the feasibility of covering all of these special expense type items. Next item we have is education funding. So if there are no dependent children or no kids to put through college, you can skip this section altogether. If there are, it's pretty straightforward. We can collect the child's name, age, college start age, cost of college, number of years, if they have any amount saved, and if they're making any annual additions, that can be entered, and all that information will be used for an education funding report. So if I wanted to add a new child, I can, or add an existing child, I can. This cost per year, we have a college cost estimator to help you come up with that cost. And we can narrow down the schools by state. So we're in Oregon. We can list the schools in Oregon, and we're in Corvallis, where we have Oregon State. So if we wanted to look at tuition rates for Oregon State University, we can select it here. So you can see the tuition. We can change in-state or out-of-state. We can add in things like housing cost and any additional amount that you want to add as a percentage for a cushion or a specific dollar amount. And you can choose OK to help estimate that college cost per year. So that choose college can be a handy feature when you're trying to come up with that college cost estimator. So once you have that information entered in for children, there's an important checkbox here: include net cost of education expenses in retirement calculations. If you do not have this box checked, you'll get your education funding report, which would show the client how much their total education cost will be and what kind of savings they need to make in order to fund the college costs. But you won't have that college cost impact the parents' retirement projections. If we do check this box, what we're saying is the parents actually are going to cover any of the uncovered college costs by essentially pulling from their assets to cover those college expenses. So that checkbox can make a big difference in the plan. If the parents are planning to pull from their assets to cover their children's education costs, you'll want to make sure to check that box. Otherwise, you can leave the box unchecked and you'll just get the education funding report. It will not impact the parents' retirement projection. You can also set your assumed inflation rate for the education costs, as well as an after-tax rate of return for the college funds that you're actually saving for these costs. So the next data input item is assets, and this is where you're going to spend a little time entering in all the different assets that the clients have. And this is all investment type assets, so anything like their residence or property, private property type items are going to go in the next other asset/debt section. So assets is going to be purely for investment type assets. So I can add a new asset or edit one of these existing assets. If we look at cash, you can see it's pretty straightforward. You just need to fill out a description, owner, type, which is just a drop down giving you some commonly used asset types, balance, how much is in this cash asset today, additions, so if they're making any additions into this account, how much are they putting away, starting year, if they're going to be starting additions in the future rather than the current year, you could fill that out, and number of years if it's going to be limited. So starting year and number of years, if you just leave 0 like we've done here, the program's going to assume those additions occur from current age until retirement age. But if you want to do something more specific, that's where you can fill out that starting year and number of years. It's important to choose an account taxation. This is where you can choose whether it's a regular taxable account or retirement account. Some of that's going to be limited based on the type that you have selected. Choose an asset class. You see that employer additions in this case is grayed out because this is a regular savings and investment type assets. If I wanted to save my changes, I would make sure I clicked on Update Assets before clicking Continue at the bottom. In this case, I'm going to hit Cancel. And let's look at one of their 401k type assets. So you can notice here annual additions for owner, and now that it's a 401k, the annual additions for the employer also picks up and becomes available for you. So you'll get all their assets in there and you'll be able to see a summary of what's been entered. Then you can move forward to asset allocation. This is optional. The program will populate a suggested allocation based on what's set up under administration or settings, depending on the user permissions. But if you want to enter in a specific suggested allocation for this case rather than using what's set up in the default, you can enter in a suggested allocation just by filling out this column here. We'll move on then to other assets and debts, and this is going to be where you're entering in any non-investment type assets. So things like residence, personal property, automobiles can all go here. Also liabilities, so things like their mortgage, credit card, auto loans, you can enter in that information. This information as far as regarding payments, this is used for the debt freedom reports. If you do not want to use the debt freedom reports, you can leave this information to the right blank and just enter in the liability balances and owners. The debt freedom looks at kind of that debt snowball type effect of paying off the higher interest rate loans first, and it will come up with a debt freedom plan for the client. If you choose to use that debt freedom section, make sure you fill out this information, and then there's an additional input which allows you to apply an additional amount towards the debt. So if they have an extra $100 a month they could throw towards those debts, you can capture that here and it'll be included in that debt freedom plan. So the last of the data input section is the required data input sections, I should say, is the rates. And this is going to be where you're setting up the rates of return primarily, as well as the tax rates. So the program groups the assets based on their account taxation types. So all the taxable savings and investments get grouped together and tracked going forward, earning the rate of return that you've specified here. So they would get 7% pre-retirement, and it would switch to 6% post-retirement. So you have the opportunity to enter in a rate of return for the period before retirement as well as that period after retirement. Retirement accounts all get grouped together and they would earn a separate rate of return as well as tax-free or annuity type assets. The program is going to ask you to enter in the tax rate. The program will apply this tax rate, so for every dollar of interest or dollar of earned income, whatever taxable ordinary income, the program is going to charge 25 cents for taxes based on this 25% tax rate that I've set here, and switch to 20% post-retirement. Standard deviation, the program will calculate that for you automatically. If you want to override it, you can enter in a different standard deviation here. Discount rate for survivor needs net present value calculation. This is used for the life insurance reports. What it does is it looks at all the years going forward, brings it back into today's dollars to determine how much life insurance they would need today. So people typically like to use like an after-tax rate of return here, and you can see that the 6% corresponds pretty well to that for this application, for this plan. We also have the ability to set increases for account deposits. So where individual one was putting $1,000 into his 401k, we're saying this $1,000 is going to increase at 3% each year. So that addition to that asset is going to go up over time until that retirement age. A couple more options for you. Proportionalized calculations. The program by default does a rolling 12 months, so the first year in the projection is going to be 12 months from the day that you run the plan. If you choose instead, you can check this box, which is going to change that first year from a full 12 months to be based on the calendar year. So it's going to say, let's say it's June 1st, and we check this box, the program's going to show 6 months for the first year. So it's going to show 6 months of addition, 6 months of earned income, rather than that full 12 months. So that's just an option for you depending on your preference of how that first year is treated in the program. The last item is to use fat tails, which of course impacts the Monte Carlo. That's going to give you some more weighting on those extreme negative market events, so it'll be a little bit more conservative for the Monte Carlo analysis. So once you're through with that, that's really everything that you need to run the reports and view that full financial plan or get into that what if feature. We have an additional tool called the behavior analysis, and this allows you to do some more complex modeling using Monte Carlo. So the regular Monte Carlo looks at varying rates of return every year. This behavior analysis also allows you to look at varying spending. So not only can you vary the rates of return, you can also choose to vary the inflation, and you can do variable spending. So you can have a budget floor, a budget ceiling, and a ratio between those two. So budget floor would mean that the client could spend down to 90% of their current budget, or budget ceiling, they could spend up to 125% of their current budget. And what that would mean is when the program runs those Monte Carlo simulations and they have a really poor rate of return, the program's not going to spend 100% of their budget. It's actually going to kind of try to model some reactive behavior and say, okay, well, you know, if we had a really bad year, we would probably buckle down on our expenses a little bit and we'd spend less of our budget. In this case, we could spend down as low as our budget floor. Or if the rate of return was really great that year, the program would allow them to spend a little bit more upwards to their budget ceiling. So that's trying to reflect, in most cases, this will show a little higher result, assuming some reactive behavior. So they have a bad return, they spend a little less. If they have a good return, they spend a little bit more. Overall, their Monte Carlo success tends to be higher. The other idea that it introduces on top of this variable spending is looking at different retirement ages. So it will evaluate different retirement ages based on what you have set as initial withdrawal rate. So in this case, we're looking at if this client was to retire in a range of either 2 years early or 2 years late. And to evaluate if they're able to retire, the program's going to look at this initial withdrawal rate limit of 4%, or 4.5% in this case. When we look at the results here, it shows at 64.9%. And what this means is that 64 of those trials that were run, 9% of the time, their assets were high enough that they could pull to cover their expenses without exceeding a withdrawal of 4.5%. So that's not so great. But if we look at age 66, pushing it back a couple of years, 65% of the time they were able to cover their expenses without pulling more than 4.5% of their assets at that point. So there's a lot more information on the behavior analysis. You can get to a help quick start guide right here. There's also more information on the reports. If you choose not to include this, you would just want to make sure you just uncheck this data input, zero out these items. The program will not generate the behavior analysis report, so it's completely optional. We normally recommend just getting through the main program before you start exploring and playing with this tool. But it is pretty cool once you get it all figured out.